What's up everybody, and welcome back to the channel. It's great to see you all here. Now let me ask you a question. How well do you really know the people around you? Your friends, your neighbors, maybe even your family? We all put on a bit of a front now and then, right? A little social mask to get through the day. But what happens when that mask becomes a whole new person? A completely separate, meticulously crafted identity that hides something much, much darker or just weirder underneath. It's a chilling thought, and one that makes you question everything you think you know. Today we're counting down 5 people who lived secret double lives. These aren't just little white lies we're talking about. These are life-altering, headline-grabbing deceptions that lasted for years, sometimes even decades. We're diving deep into the psychology, the audacity, and the eventual downfall of individuals who managed to fool everyone, from their closest confidants to the highest levels of government. The sheer commitment to these alternate realities is, frankly, mind-boggling. Some of these stories will shock you. We're venturing into a world of fake heiresses, counterfeit Rockefellers, and spies hiding in plain sight. These tales prove that sometimes the most unbelievable fiction is actually fact. It's a wild ride through the murky waters of identity and deception, so buckle up. The question we're left with is, could someone you know be living a double life? Let's get into it. Kicking off our list at number 5 is a man who called himself Clark Rockefeller. Now that name alone carries some weight, doesn't it? It conjures images of old money, sprawling estates, and a level of influence that most of us can only dream of. And for years that's exactly the image Clark projected. He was sophisticated, intelligent, a bit eccentric, and moved in the most elite social circles. He married a successful Harvard MBA, had a daughter, and lived a life of apparent luxury, all while claiming to be a scion of the legendary Rockefeller dynasty. He told elaborate stories about his secretive, powerful family, explaining his lack of a paper trail as a necessary precaution for someone of his stature. He claimed he was a physicist, a ship captain, and even worked on secret government projects. People bought it, why wouldn't they? He was charming, he was confident, and he looked the part. He was the kind of guy who could talk his way into or out of anything. He was a master of smoke and mirrors, building a persona that was as impressive as it was utterly, completely fake. The truth, however, was far less glamorous. Clark Rockefeller was actually a German man named Christian Karl Gerhardsreiter. He had come to the United States as a student in the 1970s and simply never left. He spent the next 30 years cycling through a series of aliases, each one a stepping stone to a more elaborate identity. He was a chameleon, adapting his backstory and personality to fit his surroundings, always aiming higher, always pushing the limits of his own deception. It was a long con, played out over decades. The carefully constructed world of Clark Rockefeller didn't begin to crumble until his marriage fell apart. His wife, Sandra Boss, started to grow suspicious of his increasingly bizarre and controlling behavior. When she filed for divorce and sought full custody of their daughter, Gerhardsreiter's web of lies began to unravel at an astonishing rate. The man who claimed to be part of one of America's most powerful families couldn't produce a single valid document to prove his identity. The facade finally shattered completely in 2008 when he kidnapped his own daughter during a supervised visit, triggering a nationwide manhunt. The FBI got involved, and the name Clark Rockefeller was plastered across every news channel. The investigation into Gerhardsreiter's past connected him to a cold case from the 1980s. The disappearance and murder of a California couple, John and Linda Sohus. In 2013, he was convicted of the murder of John Sohus, adding a sinister final chapter to his decades-long performance. From a small-town German boy to a fake Rockefeller to a convicted murderer, it's a terrifying trajectory of deception. Coming in at number 4, we have a much more recent case, one that took the New York social scene by storm. Meet Anna Sorokin, or, as she was better known, Anna Delvey. In the mid-2010s, Delvey appeared on the scene like a character straight out of a movie. She was young, stylish, and claimed to be a wealthy German heiress with a trust fund worth a staggering 60 million euros. She had a grand vision to create an exclusive, members-only arts club called the Anna Delvey Foundation. With this incredible backstory, she effortlessly infiltrated New York's elite. She lived for months in expensive boutique hotels, tipped with crisp $100 bills, and hosted lavish dinners where the guest list was a who's who of the art, fashion, and tech worlds. She talked big, name-dropping influential people and discussing massive art acquisitions. She looked the part, dressed in designer clothes from Balenciaga and Celine, and carried herself with an air of entitled nonchalance that made her story seem all the more believable. The problem was, None of it was real. The massive trust fund she was supposedly waiting to access was a complete fabrication. The wealth, the connections, the entire persona, it was all a meticulously constructed lie. Anna Sorokin was actually from a working-class Russian family who had immigrated to Germany when she was a teenager. Her father wasn't an oil baron or a diplomat. He ran a small heating and cooling business. The heiress was a hoax. Her entire lavish lifestyle was funded by a pyramid scheme of bad checks, fake wire transfer confirmations, and fraudulent loan applications. She would convince banks to give her massive overdrafts based on forged documents proving her overseas wealth. She would forget her wallet and ask wealthy new friends to cover her expenses, promising to pay them back with a wire transfer that, of course, would never arrive. She left a trail of unpaid bills at luxury hotels, private jet companies, and restaurants across Manhattan. The con eventually unraveled when her debts became too large and too numerous to juggle. One by one, the friends she had scammed and the institutions she had defrauded began to compare notes. A former friend, a photo editor at Vanity Fair, wrote a bombshell exposé detailing how she was tricked into footing the bill for a $62,000 luxury trip to Morocco. The district attorney's office started building a case, and in 2017, the fake heiress was arrested. Anna Sorokin was ultimately convicted on multiple charges of grand larceny and theft of services, sentenced to 4 to 12 years in prison. Her story is a fascinating look at the power of confidence and the allure of wealth. She didn't have a sophisticated disguise, she simply acted like she belonged, and for a surprisingly long time, everyone believed her. It's a stark reminder of how easily we can be fooled by the trappings of status and the performance of power. Our number 3 spot goes to a man whose life was so unbelievable, it was literally turned into a hit Hollywood movie directed by Steven Spielberg. I'm talking about the legendary con artist, Frank Abagnale Jr. His story is the stuff of legend, a masterclass in deception that began when he was just a teenager. Before he was even old enough to legally drink, Abagnale had already lived more lives than most people could even imagine. His career in crime started small, with check fraud schemes against his own father. But he quickly realized he had a talent for forgery, and more importantly, for projecting an aura of authority. He recognized that a uniform was a powerful tool. So, what did he do? He got his hands on a pilot's uniform. By posing as a Pan Am first officer, he managed to deadhead, or fly for free, on over 250 flights to 26 countries. He was just a kid playing dress-up, but his confidence was so absolute that no one ever questioned him. But being a pilot was just one of his many roles. When he grew tired of flying, he decided to try his hand at medicine. After moving to a new town in Georgia, he forged a Harvard Medical School diploma and bluffed his way into a job as a pediatric hospital supervisor. He reportedly managed to avoid any real medical emergencies by letting his interns handle all the actual work. Think about that for a moment. A teenager with no medical training whatsoever was in charge of a pediatric ward. It's terrifying. When he felt his medical ruse was getting too risky, he moved on to his next profession, law. He forged a law degree from Harvard, passed the Louisiana bar exam, which he claims he did honestly after 2 failures, and got a job with the state's attorney general's office. A pilot, a doctor, and a lawyer, all before the age of 21. It's a resume that is as impressive as it is completely fraudulent. He was a true virtuoso of imposture. Throughout this period, he was also a master check forger. He developed numerous techniques to defraud banks, creating convincing replicas of payroll checks and cashing them all over the world. By his own estimation, he cashed more than $2.5 million in bad checks, and that's in 1960s money. He was always one step ahead of the authorities, using his charm and quick thinking to escape capture time and time again. Eventually, the law did catch up with him. He was arrested in France in 1969 at the age of 21 and served time in French, Swedish, and American prisons. But in a final, ironic twist, his criminal expertise became his greatest asset. After his release, he began working with the FBI, teaching agents how to detect the very same types of fraud and forgery he had perfected. Frank Abagnale Jr. went from being one of America's most wanted fugitives to a world-renowned security consultant, a true poacher-turned-gamekeeper. At number 2, we take a turn from financial fraud to something far more sinister: espionage at the highest level. This is the story of Robert Hansen, a man who, on the surface, was a dedicated, hard-working, and deeply religious family man. He was a 25-year veteran of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, an organization tasked with protecting the United States from foreign threats. He was the ultimate insider. But for 22 of those years, Robert Hanssen was living a profound and dangerous double life. While his colleagues saw him as a somewhat awkward but brilliant counterintelligence analyst, Hanssen was secretly one of the most damaging spies in American history. Starting in 1979 and then more consistently from 1985 until his arrest in 2001, he was selling America's most sensitive national security secrets to the Soviet Union and later to Russia. What he sold was devastating. He compromised dozens of human sources, at least 3 of whom were executed by the KGB as a direct result of his betrayal. He revealed the existence of a top-secret eavesdropping tunnel built by the FBI and NSA underneath the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C. He handed over thousands of pages of classified documents detailing everything from U.S. satellite technology to our nuclear war contingency plans. He was a one-man intelligence disaster. What makes Hanssen's case so chilling is how he operated right under the noses of his colleagues. He was the very definition of hiding in plain sight. He used his position within the FBI to search the Bureau's own computer systems to see if he was under investigation. He was a master of tradecraft, using dead drops, leaving packages of stolen documents in parks around his suburban Virginia neighborhood, and communicating with his Russian handlers through encrypted channels. His motivations were complex and, to this day, not fully understood. It wasn't just about the money, though he was paid over $1.4 million in cash and diamonds over the years. Colleagues described him as arrogant and resentful, feeling he was intellectually superior to his bosses and that his genius was underappreciated. He seemed to crave the thrill and the intellectual challenge of the game, a secret war he was waging against the very institution he had sworn to serve. The FBI hunted for the mole in their ranks for years, an investigation codenamed Gray Suit. They initially suspected another agent, but the leaks continued even after that agent was sidelined. It wasn't until they paid a former KGB officer $7 million for a file on an anonymous American mole that they finally got the evidence they needed. The file contained a tape recording of the mole speaking to a Russian agent. The voice was unmistakably Robert Hanssen's. He was arrested in 2001 after being caught red-handed making one last dead drop. He is now serving multiple life sentences in a supermax prison, a traitor who almost got away with it. And at our number 1 spot is a story of deception so audacious and so emotionally manipulative, it's almost difficult to comprehend. This is the story of Tanya Head, a woman who emerged from the rubble of September 11, 2001, with one of the most harrowing and heroic survival stories imaginable. She claimed to have been on the 78th floor of the South Tower, the floor where the second plane hit. Her story was incredibly detailed and cinematic. She described the impact, the fireball, the carnage. She spoke of crawling through smoke and flames, her arm horribly burned, when a dying man handed her his wedding ring to give to his wife. She claimed her fiancé, a man named Dave, had been killed in the North Tower. Her tale was one of profound loss, incredible resilience, and the kindness of strangers in the face of unimaginable horror. It was a story that America needed to hear. Because of her powerful narrative, Tanya Head quickly became one of the most prominent faces of the 9/11 survivor community. She co-founded and later became the president of the World Trade Center Survivors Network, a support group for those who had escaped the towers. She gave tours at Ground Zero to visitors, including politicians like Mayor Michael Bloomberg and Governor George Pataki, recounting her story with tears in her eyes. She was a symbol of hope and survival. She gave countless interviews, her story becoming more polished and more heartbreaking with each telling. She was a source of inspiration for thousands, a living testament to the strength of the human spirit. Her work with the Survivors Network was praised, and she was a beloved figure within the community she helped build. She was there for others, helping them process their trauma, all while seemingly carrying the weight of her own. But in 2007, the New York Times began working on an anniversary piece about 9/11 survivors and decided to feature Tanya. As they started to fact-check the details of her incredible story, inconsistencies began to appear. The details just weren't lining up. They couldn't find any record of her fiancé Dave. They couldn't find anyone who remembered seeing her at the scene. The company she claimed to have worked for, Merrill Lynch, had no record of her employment. The truth was shocking, and it unraveled the entire 9/11 survivor community. Tanya Head wasn't in the World Trade Center on September 11th, she wasn't even in the United States. On that day, she was in Barcelona, Spain, attending a business class. Her real name was Alicia Esteve Head. Her horrific injuries, her dead fiancé, her miraculous escape, every single element of her story was a complete and utter fabrication. She had inserted herself into one of the world's greatest tragedies, for reasons that remain unclear: attention, sympathy, or perhaps something deeper and more disturbed. When her lies were exposed, she disappeared from public life, leaving behind a community feeling doubly betrayed. And there you have it. Those were 5 people who lived unbelievable double lives, from the glitz and glamour of fake high society to the shadowy world of international espionage and the deeply disturbing fabrication of a tragic identity. These stories show just how fragile our perception of reality can be. The sheer amount of effort, planning, and nerve it takes to maintain these deceptions for years on end is just staggering. It makes you wonder what secrets the people we pass on the street every day might be hiding behind their smiles. These individuals manage to fool friends, family, lovers, and even entire government agencies, all by constructing an alternate reality and living inside it with unwavering commitment. It's a chilling reminder that the most compelling characters aren't always found in movies or books. Sometimes they're living right next door. The line between who we are and who we pretend to be can sometimes blur into nothing, leaving a trail of chaos and betrayal in its wake. It's a fascinating, if not terrifying, part of the human condition. So what do you think? Which story shocked you the most? Was it the audacity of Anna Delvey, the treachery of Robert Hansen, or the heartbreaking deception of Tanya Head? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you found these stories as compelling as we did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the unbelievable. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.